Contract administration involves the activities performed after a contract has been awarded. How do you ensure that a contract is successful? The goal of this video is to provide you with a basic overview of contract administration and to give you a few helpful ideas on how to successfully administer a contract. If you purchase supplies and services for your school district, your municipality, or any other public entity, then this video is meant for you, your project managers, and your contract staff. In fact, all public employees will benefit from these best practice tips for administering contracts.
My name is Glenn Cunha. I'm the Inspector General for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Contract administration is important because even though a jurisdiction is contracting out the provision of a supply or service, it's not contracting out the responsibility of providing that service. Therefore, ensuring that vendors comply with public contracts is often one of the most vital responsibilities of public agencies. The effects of a contract gone wrong are felt by procurement officials, the people who depend on the good or service being procured, and the community at large. Ensuring that the government is on the ball in monitoring and executing contracts builds integrity in government, and it's absolutely essential to building faith in our democratic institutions. Contract administration is vital to ensuring that jurisdictions provide citizens with goods and services that they need. Successful contract administration can help your jurisdiction avoid preventable issues and save time, money, and extra work. Overall, strong contract oversight is one of the best ways to prevent fraud, waste, and abuse.
Now, let's review contract administration in more detail. We've broken the concept down into 3 phases: prepare, manage, and protect. We'll begin with the first phase of the process, prepare. You've completed the procurement, you've signed the contract, and now you're ready to prepare to manage the contract and ensure its success. There are 4 recommended steps within the prepare phase of contract administration. These steps do not have to be performed in sequence, but these are measures you should consider taking. First, conduct a kickoff meeting. Second, clearly define your contract goals. Third, appoint a contract administrator. And finally, draft a contract administration plan, or for short, a contract plan, to successfully guide your team through the term of the contract. All contracts are different and may require different management procedures, so we are providing for your consideration what we believe are best practices in contract administration. We'll begin with our first recommendation: conduct a kickoff meeting. All staff with a role in the contract and the vendor should attend this kickoff. Each kickoff meeting will differ depending on the complexity and importance of the contract. So the number of people attending, the length of the meeting, the topics covered, and the level of detail needed will change for every contract. Here are some general guidelines. During the kickoff meeting, you might discuss things like schedules, quality requirements, and what the vendor needs to do to get paid.
My name is Natasha Bisanos. I'm Senior Counsel with the Office of the Inspector General. A kickoff meeting is just what its name says. It's a way to kick things off. The kickoff meeting sets a stage for ensuring that your jurisdiction gets what it contracted for and sets up the expectations for the performance of the contract. The kickoff meeting is an opportunity to get everyone involved in the contract on the same page. It assigns the roles and responsibilities, reviews the contract schedule, and describes communication processes, as well as brainstorming issues that may arise during the contract and potential solutions. Having a kickoff meeting is the best way to start off on the right foot. A kickoff meeting can prevent poor quality in the contracted supplier service. It can prevent breakdowns in communications, missed schedule dates, payment issues as well, reporting and compliance issues, missed inspections, and multiple change order requests. It can also prevent performance from falling through the cracks because one person thinks someone else is dealing with an issue. A kickoff meeting not only helps avoid the possibility of contract breach and termination, but ultimately saves the jurisdiction money.
The prepare phase is also when you define your contract goals. For each supply or service, the procurement process and the contract identify your goals. For example, say you have a food service contract for a school district. The goals of the contract are to provide student meals that they will enjoy, that are nutritious, and affordable. You should work with the vendor to ensure you have the same understanding of the contract goals. You should make sure the vendor agrees with you about what makes a meal enjoyable, nutritious, and affordable for students so that you don't end up with lunch choices students will not eat. Another part of the prepare phase is appointing a contract administrator, which we'll look at next. It is important to appoint the contract administrator early because the contract administrator helps to ensure that the supply or service complies with the contract terms and conditions. For larger complex procurements, the contract administrator should be involved in the procurement process. They also facilitate communication and are responsible for developing and implementing the contract plan. The contract administrator should understand the terms of the specific contract they are administering, monitor vendor compliance, effectively communicate with all parties, document all significant events, contract concerns, or vendor problems, and try to resolve any problems that might occur with the vendor. The final part of the prepare phase is drafting a contract plan. The contract plan governs and guides the contract administration process. The plan outlines the who, where, what, when, why, and how of the contract. In other words, it should also tell you what needs to be done by whom to achieve the goal of the contract. The plan should include quality requirements, performance schedules, and dispute resolution procedures. The plan describes any key areas of concern, such as special terms and conditions, notice requirements, and the vendor payment process. Okay, you've held your kickoff meeting, reviewed your contract goal, selected a contract administrator, and drafted your contract plan. Now it's time to manage the contract. There are 4 things to remember when you manage the contract. Have effective monitoring in place, confirm inspections or other checks are completed, track deliverables, key dates and milestones, and maintain a complete contract file. We'll begin with what an effective contract monitoring approach entails. The key responsibility of the jurisdiction is monitoring contract performance. Effective monitoring ensures vendor compliance with contract terms and conditions, mitigates risks, and reduces the likelihood of problems or disputes. Of course, not all contracts require the same level of monitoring. For example, complex or multi-stage projects require the continuous monitoring of performance. It is also important to target monitoring to the areas of highest risk and evaluate performance before any key deliverable or milestone dates. Remember that effective monitoring helps you achieve your contract goals. Now, let's look at the next step. Confirm that inspections are being done. It's important to confirm inspections are completed throughout the term of the contract. Your contract plan should lay out the inspection strategy. For example, for inspections of the supplies you receive, the inspector can use a checklist that includes the supplies to be delivered, the quantity, quality, schedules, and whether the contract allows for substitutions. For service inspections, the inspector can use a checklist identifying the tasks to be performed, deliverables, and performance schedules. The checklist could also reference any specific plan of services. For both supplies and services, the inspector should know the standards for acceptance for deliverables from the vendor. Another step of the manage phase is keeping track of deliverables, key dates, and milestones. By tracking these dates and events, you help to make sure that your staff and the vendor remain on the same page. Maintaining a contract file is the 4th step of the manage phase. The contract file is a physical or electronic file with all relevant contract documents, including the contract plan, inspection records, notes, correspondence, payment information, and, of course, the signed and executed contract. To maintain these records, you may need to review the Public Records Law.
My name is Michael Freber, and I'm a policy analyst with the Massachusetts Office of the Inspector General. It's important to have a contract file for a few reasons. The first reason is that having a centralized location with all the documents and correspondence relating to your contract is going to be really helpful in getting anybody new to the agreement up to speed quickly and correctly. The second reason it's really good to have a contract file is because it can help prevent disputes before they arise. If there is a misunderstanding or an ambiguity regarding the contract, the solution could be as easy as going to your contract file, finding the relevant document, and finding language that speaks right to that issue. The third reason it's important to have a contract file is because at some point your jurisdiction is going to have a contract that involves a dispute, and that dispute might go to trial or arbitration. If it does, having a contract file that has all the documents and correspondence from the contract is going to be really helpful, as that's going to be evidence to show what the contract said and what happened. The fourth reason it's important to have a contract file is because at some point, it's likely your jurisdiction is going to have to go out to procure the supplier services again. And having a contract file will help you evaluate that vendor's responsibility in a future procurement.
Now that you are on the road to successfully managing your contract, the last thing we need to discuss is the protect phase. Let's review 5 important points to consider in protecting your jurisdiction. Transfer of risk, rejection of supplies, non-completion of service or unsatisfactory service, breach of contract, and finally, extensions and options to renew. Transfer of risk means the shifting of risk from one party to another, and we'll discuss it in more detail next. There are different risks for supplies and services. For example, with supplies, you want to know what happens if the supplies are damaged before you receive them. Who bears the risk? Whose insurance will cover the damage? For services, if your jurisdiction hired an electrician to perform electrical work that caused a fire, then who is responsible for any damage and repair? What do you need to do to mitigate or transfer this risk? Your contract may require the vendor provide an insurance policy or a bond before rendering any services. During the contract administration process, you should anticipate and be prepared to address these risks. Next, we'll look at rejection of supplies and non-completion or poor performance of services together, since they both mean the terms of the contract have not been met. Let's start with rejection of supplies. Say you've received the supplies, but what happens when you need to reject them for non-conformance to the contract? Do you send the supplies back, or do you request that the vendor pick them up at their own time and expense? Do you need to reject the supplies within a certain time period? The contract, along with a solid contract plan, effective communication, and a kickoff meeting, will help you address any supply rejection issues that arise during the term of the contract. Similar issues arise for service contracts. How will your jurisdiction communicate the non-completion of work or poor performance to the vendor? Who is responsible for this communication? Your contract, the contract plan, and the kickoff meeting will address how to protect your jurisdiction in the event of non-completion of a service contract or poor performance. You can't protect your jurisdiction if you haven't invested in the contract administration process. If it doesn't look like you will get the vendor to perform or perform in accordance with the contract terms, you may have a breach of contract. A breach may occur when the vendor does not satisfy the terms of the contract. At this point, the contract administrator should contact legal counsel for guidance. The contract may require you to notify the vendor of the breach in writing. Legal counsel can guide you through the process. Now, let's say your contract is set to expire and your jurisdiction would like to renew the contract. This brings us to the final component of protecting your jurisdiction: extensions and options to renew. Here, you want to make sure the applicable procurement law and your jurisdiction's policies allow you to extend or renew the contract. You should only extend or renew a contract if it is the best option for your jurisdiction. Now you know the basics of contract administration, but there's a lot more to learn. The Inspector General's office offers additional resources on the subject and is here to help you expand on what you have learned. Consider taking our live classes about contract administration, public procurement, preventing procurement fraud, and many other topics important to your role in government. Look into our Massachusetts Certified Public Purchasing Official Program, and please visit our website at www.mass.gov/IG for additional resources like our quarterly procurement bulletins, technical advisories, class schedules, and registration information. We hope to see you at one of our classes soon.
Well, I hope you found this very basic overview of contract administration helpful. My hope is that contract administrators come away from this video with new ideas and strategies to hold vendors accountable to their promises. I recommend that contract administrators take our public contracting overview course and supplies and services contracting. We also offer a one-day contract administration course. The principles of procurement and contract administration that we teach apply to statewide contracts and contracts in your local jurisdiction. We offer classes in Boston and around the state. And if you're interested in hosting OIG staff for an on-site training or receiving our video conference technology, please contact us. There is a wealth of information on our website to help you do your job better. We're all in this together. We all serve the public and our communities. To make it work, it's got to be a team effort. Thank you for watching.